The Euros are back, and so far, the games have been amazing, especially that game between Turkey and Georgia. Phew! But the Euros haven't always been this fun to watch. These are 10 of the most bizarre moments in Euros history. Number 1. Abandoned Serbia versus Albania, Euro 2016 qualifier. Serbia and Albania weren't on the best terms in 2016, and when they played in the Euros, the 3 points weren't the only thing on the line. Tensions were already high, and before the match even began, they reached boiling point. Before kickoff, with the Serbian fans already chanting offensive chants about Albania, and minutes before halftime, someone thought it would be a good idea to fly a drone carrying the Albanian nationalist banner over the pitch. Serbian player Stefan Mitrovic brought the banner down and tried to remove it, which sparked fury amongst the Albanians and started an all-out brawl, fans included. Things were so hostile that the authorities thought it best to call the entire game off instead of trying to get the players to play again. Imagine if they let them play each other after all that. The violence would make what happened to Mbappe look like a nosebleed, pun intended. Number 2. Mbappe's broken nose, Euros 2024. France just couldn't seem to score, and when they finally did manage to take the lead, it wasn't without having to pay for it in blood. Mbappe, the jewel of football, had his nose broken in a challenge, and news from after the game indicated he might even need surgery. Thankfully, it wasn't as bad as initially thought. Turns out it was nothing a face mask can't fix. Yeah, Mbappe will wear a face mask for the next couple of games, and considering he's already mocked for looking like a Ninja Turtle, the internet's gonna have a field day with it. But a broken nose isn't the worst that can happen on a football pitch. Number 3. Racism against Balotelli, Euro 2012. Just ask Mario Balotelli. Physically one of the best strikers to ever live, but mentally? Nah. He spent pretty much his entire career facing criticism for one thing or the other, and when he wasn't getting criticized, he was suffering racist abuse. Like the Euro 2012 when fans literally threw a banana at him. And it's not like he didn't see it coming. He actually told the media that he wouldn't accept any kind of racism and would straight up walk off the pitch if it happened. And it did. In Italy's 1-1 draw against Croatia, Croatian fans chanted racist chants and earned their country a fine. And that's not the only bizarre moment the Italians were a part of. Number 4. Italy versus USSR. Coin toss to decide the game. 1968. This next one was more about the sport than racism. Back in 1968, they didn't really have a clever way to decide tied games. Penalties weren't thought of as an option back then, and the genius idea they had was to have a coin toss. Yeah, they actually awarded the win to the team who won a 50-50 coin toss. Imagine playing your heart out for 120 minutes just to see the opponent celebrate the win because they guessed the right side of a coin. How on earth did they actually think a coin toss would be fair? Well, rules weren't that thought out back in the day anyway. Number 5. Ronald Koeman's celebration against Germany. Things were so bad that Ronald Koeman got away with this outrageous gesture against Germany. The rivalry between the Netherlands and Germany is one for the ages. It's not as intense these days, but back when Ronald Koeman was playing, they took no prisoners. The Dutch won that game, and if knocking West Germany out wasn't enough, Ronald Koeman exchanged shirts with a German player and ended up wiping his backside with it. Imagine the disrespect. And now he's been caught on camera picking his nose and eating it. This guy is Shrek in real life. Number 6. Sweden versus Denmark match-fixing controversy. Italy needed one team to lose. And if that isn't disgusting enough, think of how disgusted Italians felt when they found out Sweden and Denmark drew their game in 2004. After the first 2 match days, the permutation said that in order to go through, Italy needed to beat Bulgaria, and needed either one of the other 2 teams in the group to lose. On the other hand, Sweden and Denmark both knew they would go through if they drew the game, and that's exactly what happened. Italy did their job by winning 2-1. But Sweden and Denmark drew 2-2 to make sure the Italians went home. There's no proof that it was on purpose, but the Italians strongly believe the 2 countries conspired against them. Speaking of getting dumped out in the group stage. Number 7. England 2-3 versus Romania in the group of death. Germany, Portugal, and Euro 2000. In Euro 2000, the English found themselves in the group of death. Germany, Portugal, England, and Romania were in the game group and only 2 could go through. England beat Germany, and only needed a point against Romania to go through when the most English thing ever happened. They lost 3-2 to the one team no one thought would go through and were sent packing. There's a reason they called it the group of death. But it definitely wasn't, because Romania was in there. If only they could be more like 1992's Denmark. Number 8. Denmark 1992, entered because of the war in Yugoslavia and won the whole thing. These guys only got to the Euros because Yugoslavia was dropped because war had broken out in their country. That meant Denmark took their place. No one really cared at first because, well, it wasn't like Denmark would make it very far in the tournament. But they did. They didn't just make it to the final, they even won it. But the bizarre part was the way they won it. They took the lead and wasted the rest of the match by passing the ball to the keeper and picking the ball up. There was no rule against back passes back then, and Denmark made sure they used it to the fullest. No one saw it coming, and all the giants of Europe had no answer. Number 9. Greece's underdog story in 2004. And that isn't even the best underdog story, because when Greece pulled off the unthinkable, they actually did it legally. It was the proper underdog story. No one saw it coming, and when they did, it was too late. Greece made it through the group of deaths with Portugal, Spain, and Russia, and met France in the quarters. They beat them 1-0 and did the same to the Czech Republic in the semis. And 1-0 ended up being the only scoreline on their road to the knockouts because they beat Portugal in the final 1-0 as well. 3 1-0 wins, and just like that, Greece was the winner of the Euros. It wasn't really a bizarre moment if you're neutral, but the fans hated how Greece kept getting away with narrow 1-0 wins and ended up taking the trophies home. Some even called their style boring. But hey, if that's boring, check out this next team. Number 10. England's tactics in Euros 2024. England's success in international football has been a hot topic for quite some time now. The Premier League might be the best league in the world, but that doesn't necessarily mean England has the best squad. Don't get me wrong. A squad with Jadon Sancho, Marcus Rashford, Phil Foden, Cole Palmer, and Jude Bellingham is nothing to be scoffed at. But all that's useless if the man at the helm can't think for the life of him. Gareth Southgate makes it to almost all the big games in the Premier League to have a look at his players, but it looks like he's not really paying attention. The guy's got the best players on his squad warming the bench, while more defensive players are preferred. He's got Jude Bellingham playing at cam when he could just push him into central midfield and have Foden in the squad as well. And the worst part is, as soon as England gets a lead, they turn into the most passive team in the world. Even Diego Simeone's Atletico Madrid's more offensive when defending a lead. It's disgraceful, to be honest. The only thing more bizarre than that is probably what's yet to come from Gareth Southgate's England. If you have something else in mind, let me know in the comments below. And make sure you give this next video a watch, because this one's a personal favorite of mine.